morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. We have a personality today, and a great one, and we're going to enjoy some of his perspectives and kind of peek around and peck at him and see if we can find anything going on about Lincoln Christian University out there, that great school on the east side of town. Professor, I'm going to have a formal introduction shortly. You recall that I always try to start, I have to do things with, with the partner's permission.
I understand.
We always try to start Viewpoint with a
if you
kudo.
buy that, I got a used car I want to talk to you about.
Kudo or a comment about something that's going on in the community. Today, I haven't asked Mrs. Busby's permission. I'm going to switch the format on that and comment on the loss of a dear friend. Billy Shoemaker died recently. As a matter of fact, it was on Martin Luther King Day that he died early in the morning. Billy tried to die hard for 3 or 4 weeks. So it's a sadness and a gladness. If you're lucky in life, once in a while you'll come along and you'll have a friend like Billy Shoemaker. Quiet, self-effacing fella, hard worker, humorous. Did everything in his power to put me down every time he saw me, and did it with a lot of aplomb. We were close, and that we were not that close. Vicariously, we see each other from time to time. We weren't together daily or weekly or anything like. But just one of those fellows that you genuinely love, and I'm glad that he's able to return to his Lord and Maker. Although the Lord took about 2 weeks longer than it should have. He tried real hard. In 1950, my father died down, and my mother found a poem in his billfold about friendships, and it must have impacted him because he was carrying it in his billfold. And I have had that for years. And the magic of the internet. I was laying in bed last night, and I thought about that poem, and I was trying to remember it. And memory being what it is at this age, a few stanzas slipped here and there, and I couldn't remember them. So I stepped up to the computer this morning and just typed in "around the corner." And sure enough, it turns out that was a very famous poem, as it turns out. And so in Billy's honor, I've done this before here on WLCN, but in Billy's honor, I'm going to read "Around the Corner" as a tribute to Billy Shoemaker. Around the corner, I have a friend in this great city that has no end. Yet days go by and weeks rush on, and before I know it, a year is gone. And I never see my old friend's face, for life is a swift and terrible race. He knows I like him just as well as in the days when I rang his bell, and he rang mine when we were younger then. And now we are busy, tired men, tired of playing a foolish game, tired of trying to make a name. Tomorrow, I say, I will call on Jim just to show him that I'm thinking of him. But tomorrow comes and tomorrow goes, and distance between us grows and grows. Around the corner, yet miles away, here's a telegram, sir. Jim died today. And that's what we get, deserve in the end. Around the corner, a vanished friend. To Billy Shoemaker, a vanished friend.
Great tribute.
Well, that's interesting that poem turned out as a rather famous poem. It took about 2 seconds for that to pop up on Google. I couldn't believe how fast. I just typed in 3 words, "around the corner," and up that came.
That's a tearjerker.
Well,
that is.
It meant a lot. Now, my father died in 1950. That's a long time ago. And he was only 50 years old. And in his time, he's garnered a friend or two.
Sure enough.
And so I thought of that when I thought of Billy. So now let's get serious. And I think we have been serious, for goodness sakes. Let's introduce our guests and get down to real business about Lincoln Christian University.
Yes, Dr. Don Green, of course, is the president. And I still make the mistake, and I think I'm maybe not alone, of saying Lincoln Christian College, LCC. But it isn't.
But at least you're not calling it Lincoln Bible Institute anymore.
It was LBI. And I hear tell that in all disrespect, people used to call it JCU when it first began.
That's probably true.
Or Jesus Tech.
Yeah. When it started, it was actually called Hargrove's Folly.
Yeah.
because
I
they thought
remember
Earl
that.
Hargrove was just ludicrous in starting a college in Lincoln, Illinois. So they called it Hargrove's Folly.
What
just
year
think of that,
was
yeah.
that?
That was in 1944.
That goes back a ways.
School began as Lincoln Bible Institute in 1944.
And up on Logan, wasn't it?
Actually, the first classes were held on the Lincoln College campus.
Oh, they were.
For the first year, we met on the second floor of University Hall at Lincoln College. We had 15 students in the first class,
Think of
and
that.
they
Just
met
think of that.
in a borrowed classroom, a rented classroom at
my.
Lincoln College, and then purchased the building up on Logan Street. So
okay.
that was where they had their first campus.
So that was
Were
the
you
old
there
Lincoln.
quite a while?
Just a very few years, actually, and outgrew that rather quickly. The school really took off, and then used that for some classrooms, and then moved more classrooms to the Lincoln Christian Church. Then the campus actually began in 1950. So about
Dr. Green,
5 years.
the growth was really rather spectacular. To what do you attribute that?
Well, it was post-World War II. It was coming on the heels. The growth occurred at the end of World War II, and the school was really started to address the need of churches in the state of Illinois, the Christian churches, Churches of Christ. Many of them had closed. A number of them had, back in those days, quarter-time or half-time preaching, which meant they had preachers that would be on a circuit, and they'd be there once a month or twice a month. And so the call that was initially coming from Lincoln was, we need to train preachers for these churches. And that was kind of what got the school really started, and why it took off, I think, and
But
growing
now-
in the early days.
Your curriculum offerings are all over the place.
Yeah,
aren't
we've
they?
expanded. Although in the early days, it was quite fascinating to go back and look in the early days. Even in the first class of students, we had students there that were preparing for nursing programs, and so Hargrove kind of had a large vision of preachers, teachers, other Christian workers. That was what he wanted to train, and yet we have expanded our curricular offerings significantly, which is a part of why the name changed from Lincoln Bible Institute to Lincoln Christian College and Seminary, and now Lincoln Christian University. So we offer everything from associates of arts degrees, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and a doctor of ministry degree. So
Wow.
Yeah, that's quite a spectrum. You know, in the early days, and I presume, is it still true today, students out there and folks associated with Lincoln Christian University were the nucleus of pastorships for our small communities like the Beesons and the New Hollands and around, well, a lot further away geographically than that. On Sunday, these folks could, and without those students or associates of Lincoln Christian University, they'd be without a pastor.
that was very true in the early days. A lot of area churches were being served by students of Lincoln, and the makeup of the college and seminary classes today is quite different. We have intensive week classes, and we will have students who will fly in for a week from New Hampshire to Oregon and all across the Midwest, Kansas. They'll come in and they'll take a week-long class, and that's basically their semester's work. They do papers and other things associated with that, but they're commuting from a much larger distance, as well as online students.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, you also have a worldwide student base, since you have our folks from China over. Are
We
they
do.
still on campus, sir?
We do. We have about 25 Chinese students,
That's amazing.
as well as students from a handful of other countries. We have students from Myanmar, from India, from Japan, as well as a good nucleus
So
of
it's a
students that come
cosmopolitan
from,
group you have
from
out
China.
there.
It's been quite fascinating to see that develop and grow. So,
Now,
yeah.
in 1944, you had 15 students. There must be more than that.
We have more than that, yeah. We have just over 800 100 students this year that are studying at Lincoln or at one of our extension sites or online. So we have a really fine student population, a very diverse student population. I'm going to be meeting later today with a young couple that we're interviewing for a faculty position in our Master of Arts in Mental Health Counseling. And one of the things that I always try to do in courting a faculty member is try to help them understand why Lincoln Christian University, what is it about this school, and the fact that in almost 75 years we've trained over 16,000 people. We call them Lincoln leaders. They have settled in every state in the United States and have served in 167 different countries.
Wow.
So that's
a
about
remarkable
the impact.
That's a big footprint.
From little Lincoln Christian University.
Yeah.
So,
Isn't that something?
it took us 60-some years to get somebody to go to North Dakota.
Oh, well, it gets cold up there,
Yeah.
don't you?
Oh, yeah, that's
we have a
where your
church
short
planter
sleeve off
there
up
now,
there. You
so-
go in that in a hurry.
The armpit of the world, huh?
Yeah. But the other thing I do is I talk to them about why Lincoln, Illinois, because oftentimes we're courting faculty that are from much larger communities, and I try to follow some advice from an old friend that talked about hanging a lantern in your dark corner. So put your light on what your biggest problem might be, and why Lincoln, Illinois. And I just begin by saying, some would say Lincoln, Illinois is in the middle of nowhere. I'm telling you, it's in the middle of everywhere. When you think about all of the downstate large cities, we're the hub of the wheel, with all of the larger cities within a 45-minute to an hour drive, and we are within 2.5 to 3 hours of Chicago, St. Louis, Indianapolis. We're in the middle of everywhere, and I think that's one of our strengths.
I said that to an officer who arrested me once for speeding. And he asked, first place I put on a Rube Act. I should have had an Academy Award. I put on a Rube Act and everything, and he asked me, where's Lincoln, Illinois? And I said, oh, officer, that's between the bean field and the corn row. If you blink, you've been through it. And he said, do you come up here often? I said, oh, Gord, no, this scares me to death up here. He said, I'm going to give you a pass. You better get out of here before you get killed.
Get back home.
So the bean field and the corn row, that's what I was talking about.
You mentioned the counseling. Is there a greater need for people to teach counseling because there are more people that need counseling, or am I misreading the world? I worry about the world, I'm telling you.
I think the need for licensed, trained counselors is obviously greater than has ever been before because of a lot of the crises of our culture and our world. But it's one of our largest seminary programs. Our Master of Arts in Mental Health Counseling is one of our larger programs. And we also have a Master of Arts in Marriage and Family Therapy out at our Las Vegas campus with students training for counseling work that they're going to be doing in the Las Vegas area.
How nice. You can go out there and get married in the
That's right.
casino, and then they'll tell you how to hold it together.
Got counselors right there. That's true. So,
We've spoken before on air about the impact of our two universities here in Lincoln College and LCU. Speak to the major economic impact that you have in this community. You and your family out there have on this in this community. It's huge.
yeah, we have not done a formal economic impact study for several years. But I remember it's probably been 10 or 15 years ago when we did. The impact was really astronomical when you think about having about a $12 million budget as a university, having events on campus that bring people into the community for overnight stays, for all the campus visits of prospective students, for somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 or 5,000 people that come to our Christmas in the chapel. All of that brings amazing dollar impact on local economies, and that's certainly true. I think Lincoln College may have done an economic impact study more recently, but it's been several years since we've done one. But it is significant for the two schools are really two of the larger employers in the community.
Oh, there's no question about that. You spread that money around. I'm always told a dollar will multiply 7 times by the time it leaves the community. That's a major thing.
That is.
And you have you have many commuting professors or teachers out there?
We do have some who commute from nearby communities, some as far away as Mount Pulaski, but others who live in Sherman or in Bloomington Normal or Springfield. We do have some who do commute and teach. We have a faculty staff of just over 100 employees out at the Christian University now. So,
The presence of the campus on the east side of town is just not an architect. It's a very warm and aesthetic site as you drive by there. It's impressive. And Lord knows it looks like you've got a lot of room to expand if you need it.
We have room to grow. We actually have about 135 acres that we have there on our campus and have developed obviously less than 100 of that. So we've got room to expand. But at the same time, I give kudos to an amazing group of people on our staff, our maintenance crew, our landscaping crew. They use a lot of student help, but we have really just a fine team of people who care for our facilities. When we went through recent accreditation visits from our regional accrediting association and our other accrediting associations, one of the things that they continued to compliment us on was just the aesthetics of the campus, the beauty of the campus, the care that's taken for facilities, and so we're grateful for a great maintenance crew and group of students that makes all that happen. So.
Your music department is just second to none.
Oh,
it is amazing what they do.
It is outstanding.
Really?
Yeah.
Everything
year
that
in,
I've
year
ever
out.
been to, it's just so professional.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
We celebrated this year the 30th anniversary of our Christmas in the Chapel. It began as a Christmas celebration, soon became known as Christmas in the Chapel, and our director of that, Jeff Colleen, has been involved in every one of those. He was on the faculty 10 years before we started. This is actually his 40th year on our faculty, but 30 years of those, he's been faithful. 30 of those years in the Christmas in the Chapel production, and we had a great year of celebrating that. And,
his productions are always unique. Some of them are absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, they would equate to big Broadway productions, the way he puts the lighting, staging, choreography.
They do some amazing things.
Yes,
they really do.
And we are going to do an amazing thing right now, Doctor, because we have to choreograph in our sponsors. So go right ahead,
Good
sir.
segue.
And welcome right back to the studios of WLCN. The program, of course, is Viewpoint, appearing each Wednesday morning, 8:15 to 9 o'clock. Mrs. Busby and the old fella here try very hard to bring in guests that are very important to our community. And I think, for the most part, we've done a pretty good job. They're always full of input for us.
Yes.
Today, we have with us the
But
president.
we only invite nice people.
Yes.
Yes.
Did you step on my line again? Go right ahead. You own half the show. Go right ahead. Our guest this morning is President of Lincoln Christian University, a whale of a nice gentleman, and obviously a pretty successful educator. So, Dr. Don Green, we were talking about, before we went off air and gave obeisance to our sponsors, we were talking about the physical layout and how pretty it all is. You had something you were going to tell us about the landscape.
Yeah, it's kind of a connection between our Christmas in the Chapel and our campus. I invited Richard Hargrove back to campus for this year's 30th anniversary because he was the professor of music that started our Christmas in the Chapel 30 years ago. He's now in Lexington, Kentucky, and when I invited him, he regretfully wasn't able to come, but he said, I was on campus about a year or so so ago. He actually has a grandson who's a student at LCU, and so they'd been on campus and had seen it, and he commented on the beautiful landscaping, and he said, I have to tell you, when we first moved out to the campus, our house, the little white house that was on the corner there of Campus View Drive, was the only building there, and the cornfield had already been shucked, and so it was just stalks lying on the ground, and said, Mom looked out and said, Earl, are we ever going to get any trees planted out here? And so he said, on behalf of my mom, I thank you for the landscaping. And my dad would say quietly, how much did all this cost?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well,
So
there's always a
different
basic,
perspectives.
there's always a basic cost there. Your experience with when you have the folks from China, you have several students over here. As you mentioned, I can't remember. I don't know, you just told me a few minutes ago how many.
About 25.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you get this age, you forget a lot in a hurry. They're in an entirely different culture. How has that worked? Obviously, it works successfully, but they have to interact with their community members and so forth. Tell us a little bit about that. It's important to the community.
The first thing that we do is that most of our students will go through a year of what we call English Language Academy, and that's where they're learning English proficiency, the ability to speak and to write, and a part of that curriculum is introducing them to American culture. It's introducing them to the local culture so that they can really become acclimated into the community. It works in part because we have a really fine director. Waylon Lee is the director of our China Institute, and his wife, Haofeng. The two of them are just amazing people to work with our Chinese students. They're both Chinese nationals as well, but have been in the States for quite a long while. So they're a key, but we also have host families that provide for our Chinese students over break so that they're not able to travel home for Thanksgiving or for Christmas break. In fact, some of them come and they'll stay for a year or two before they're able to go back home. So we're grateful for host families that let them experience American life and culture and take them in and celebrate Christmas with them, the holidays with them. So that's a part of what we're trying to do to acclimate them, as well as weekly Walmart runs. We provide transportation for them to get across town to the Walmart. So
the greatest part as far as, but there are too a huge impact on the economics of the community in a place like that.
So what we've seen is a high percentage of these students, after they finish the English Language Academy, will actually matriculate into one of our undergraduate or graduate programs and do very well in studying business or education or psychology or ministry. We've had a really fine response of these students. Sent them back now as graduates. So.
What kind of reactions do you get from them when they first enroll and first begin here in a culture that must be awfully different from theirs?
Yeah, it takes a lot for them to acclimate. It really does. Not only the language, but just a totally different culture. What we find is they still will kind of click together. They maintain their very close ties with each other. They have their Friday evening kind of chapel service. They have a meal together and a worship time together, all in Chinese. So a few times a year, I will join them on Friday evening and eat their food with them, and it's quite delightful and yet different. And then I worship with them and don't have a clue what they're saying or singing. And I think that's what they're experiencing all the time when they're sitting in one of our services trying to learn English and understand what's going on. So
how brave they are.
Yeah, they really are.
Now, will they go back to their home? Will they go back to China and be involved in missionary type work, or we're training a lot more than missionaries. We're training educated people to be entrepreneurs and business people. as well. Teachers, what will they go back to China to do?
Actually, we've seen some of our
All of the
students now
above?
graduate, going back into the business sector, some doing ministry, some working in education, so they are doing all of the above. And that's what we bring them here for. We want to send them back equipped and ready to make some impact or make some difference in their community and culture.
Yeah, it's important to point out, Doctor, that we're not just training preachers per se out there.
Yeah.
We are educating people who will be entrepreneurs and business people, doctors.
In addition to
whatever,
our
lawyers.
in addition to our business, our preaching and ministry programs, we have business administration, psychology, education, pre-nursing, counseling, the opportunities for students to prepare for a number of different vocations.
My boss at the hospital got her MBA.
Yeah, Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership. Yeah, that was an online program that we developed. That's almost 10 years ago that we developed our first online Master of Arts program, and now have a number of Master of Arts programs. In fact, this year was a milestone year for us. We just learned a couple of weeks ago that having done online education for some time now, we have never been on one of the U.S. News and World Report Best Colleges lists until this year. They just came out with their list of best online programs. And we're not number one, but we're just honored to be one of. They had 647 schools nationwide that they rated, and Lincoln Christian University is ranked number 199 in our
up the
Bachelor
ladder.
of Arts in online programs. So it's the first time we've been listed or ranked by the U.S. News and World Report, and
big deal.
we're quite honored that they recognize
rightly
the
so.
quality of programs that we've been doing online. And
A couple years ago, going back to my tenure at the hospital, we had a pretty good-sized group of youngsters from China who were here visiting at LCU. And they came into the gift shop there at the hospital, and they were real good kids, real nice kids. And I didn't know what the purpose of their visit was.
yeah, we have hosted some camps during the summer to bring Chinese students to our campus to experience, again, a bit of U.S. culture, and a visit to the campus is a part of what they might do, or over the course of a month or so they would be here for a week, but they might be visiting Washington, D.C., or they might be visiting one of the national parks or Disneyland as a part of a longer trip. But they've come to the campus to experience what Christian University would be like, and that's kind of a neat thing. One of the things we've learned in working with churches and individuals in China is that there are over 200 Christian high schools in China. Now, you think about China as not a religious Christian nation, but there are over 200 Christian high schools, and we've had students from some of those high schools come and spend time visiting our campus, and that would have been probably when we had some here for a summer camp experience that we offered.
You know,
So-
Judas, you and I get always engrossed. We always get engrossed with our guests and forget to mention that people can call in. It doesn't cost them a penny. Well, you might have to drop a little extra in your collection plate next Sunday. 648-5510. Our guest this morning, as you all are, if you're paying attention, Dr. Don Green, president of Lincoln Christian University. Very important part of our community in many, many ways. Some folks might have a question or maybe a good comment. Don't make it bad comments, please. Dr. Don Green, 648-5510. Surprise Judy and I and call in. Maybe we'll buy you breakfast somewhere. Or we'll meet you at Old Joe's for an early morning one. So, Dr. Green, you have one student that came. I guess she's a student, or maybe it's her husband, or maybe it's one of the staff. I don't know. But she's a talented singer. Hai Fong, and I cannot think of is it
Hao
Lee?
Fong Lee. Yes,
Yeah,
she and her
yes.
husband work with the China Institute. She's actually a trained opera singer.
Oh,
She
what a
has
voice she has.
Beautiful voice, and we're always delighted when we have an opportunity to hear her sing. So, yeah.
That kind of showcase her talent.
We really
is
do.
considerable.
Yeah, she is a remarkable talent. And
Cultural spinoff
Uh-huh.
for the community to have
really
that kind of
is.
talent here. The music on the theatrical part of your university are an important part of our community. You have folks representing your folks, the Lincoln Community Theater, and we have also the LAMS, Lincoln Area Musical Society, folks that participate in that. Very important to us.
Yeah, it's actually a great partnership with the community when you think of students and faculty who have come to be a part of Lincoln Christian University, but for whatever reason, many of them stay in the community, and we're grateful that they do, because they do find their way into our community, into our churches, into local community theater, and at every one of those events that I go to, it's just amazing to me to look around and see that person came here originally to be a part of the Lincoln Christian College or Lincoln Christian University community, and now here they are making such an impact in our community. So Tim Serby would be an example
Yes.
of
well.
someone like that. Tim
Fine
came
Premier
here
example.
as a student and has stayed in the community through all these years, still works with us. He's retired now for the second time,
Yeah.
but he still works with us in our theatrical productions, as well as obviously in community theater and the Lambs musical program. So, yeah.
Go ahead, Judith. You were going to ask something.
Well,
I'm stepping on your lines all the time.
No. I was going to ask you about your doctoral programs. What's the range of that?
Yeah, it's actually a Doctor of Ministry degree, which is not a research-based degree. It's more of a practitioner ministry degree. It's specializations in 4 areas of preaching, pastor care, spiritual formation, and leadership studies. Those are the 4 areas of specialization in our Doctor of Ministry. It's not a large program. We have about 40 students that are pursuing doctoral degrees, but every year in granting doctoral degrees from our seminary, it's just amazing again the range of people that are participating. We have granted doctorates to those that are serving in Tanzania, in Myanmar, on faculties of other colleges. So it's really kind of an example of an amazing impact from the school.
Yes.
So.
Yes, and your online program, I was so surprised when she said to me that she was going to get her MBA online from LCU, and I said, "You are?" I said, "I didn't know they had online programs." And had it not been for her, I wouldn't have known it today.
Sure. Yeah, we have 3 or 4 online master's programs. We offer 3 degrees at the bachelor's level: a psychology degree, a ministry degree, as well as a business degree. So those are all bachelor's programs that are online. But at the master's level, we have a Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership, which would be a parallel to an MBA program, not exactly an MBA, but very similar. The Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership, Master of Arts in Intercultural Studies, and a Master of Arts in Bible and Theology. So those are our 3 online programs that we currently offer. Done entirely online, so the student never comes to campus until they come for their diploma at the end, and they come and walk across the stage and graduate with their class. So,
Proudly.
Yeah, proudly do so.
Yes.
Yeah. And those are students scattered everywhere. That's just been a remarkable thing to see students able to study online from Ghana, Africa, from India, from China, from Japan, from South American countries, Mexico, Canada, we really have scattered Lincoln's influence in a lot of ways through our online master's program.
Well, you've sure kept yourselves in line with what's important today, and
Well,
that's
we've tried
technology.
to do so. Yeah, that is very true. That's one of the changing demographics. More and more students are looking for greater accessibility. I still am old school in that I still think there's something to be said for the face-to-face interaction, the classroom experience, and yet for about 5 or 6 years I directed our MA in Organizational Leadership program. I was actually the one that developed that and directed it for about 5 years before stepping into the president's role. And I saw the amazing sense of community that can even develop, though, in an online program. It's just phenomenal how students engage and interact at an amazing level online. And the way technology now allows for access to our library online, access to all the resources they need online, access to watching the lectures by video online, it is really quite fascinating.
It's kind of a miracle.
It is.
Well, now
Think
you
about
mentioned-
technology.
You used the term, I think, old-fashioned. Let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with being old-fashioned.
No.
I understand.
There are some good old basic truths in being old-fashioned.
There is, yeah.
You mentioned a while ago something that had to do with agriculture.
Yeah.
That you have an impact in agriculture with your curricula out there.
Actually, that's something we're just exploring. A recent article in Christianity Today magazine focused on higher education. It was their higher education section, and it was an article entitled "Farminaries," which was a term I had never heard.
No.
But it's a partnership between seminaries and the agricultural community, helping students to grasp some of the ecological and global issues that they need to prepare themselves for in this global economy, so that they understand some of the impact of ecological decisions and can address some of the health needs of the world, some of the food needs of the world. And America has still such great opportunity to impact the world, and through theological education to find a way to do that in partnership with the agricultural community, I think is fascinating. So we've not begun to do anything with that other than raise now a question: what could we do in better partnership with an agricultural community to make use of the farmland we have adjacent to our campus to help our students to develop a greater awareness of the needs of the world.
You mentioned the word food, simple four-letter word.
Yeah.
Last night, I got just entranced with watching a frontline PBS program on the refugee situation over there in the Middle East and how it's had its impact. We worry about the wall down here in Mexico. Europe has over a million refugees from God knows where.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very impelling, graphic hour or so.
Oh, I'm sure.
If you ever have a problem, we don't have any problems.
Put it in perspective.
Put it in perspective.
That is so true.
Yeah. Today's problem for me is minuscule. And I mean tiny when you think of that. Every day they never know. They can't run down to the IJ and get a box of cereal.
One of our
living in tents or a tin hut.
Yeah. One of our first online students was actually from India when I first met him, born in India, studied in London, actually became a Christian there, and when he became a Christian, his Hindu family disowned him. So he was one who understood what it meant to be persecuted and to suffer. But he moved from India, and when he actually started the program, he was in Yemen. And they had to move him from Yemen because of the crisis there, so they moved him to a safer place, which was Somalia, which I can't imagine
golly.
thinking of that being safer.
Frying pan to fire.
But he went to work with refugees, and today he is working as a part of a UN peacekeeping force in North Africa. But here is a young man, Indian by birth, has a master's degree from Lincoln Christian University in Lincoln, Lincoln, Illinois, as a part of a peacekeeping force for the United Nations in North Africa. So that just boggles my mind when I think of how so many people are doing so many different things to make impact with their lives. And
I
he's a
bet
great
it just
example.
does boggle your mind,
It
really,
does.
when you hear about things like that.
It really does.
Somebody that you've known, and
Yeah.
now look.
Yeah, that was an exciting.
Doctor, in your tenure as Prexy of Lincoln Christian University, has there been any one particular, this is just really right off the wall real quickly, been any unusual incident or episode that you come quickly to mind to you, sir?
Well, this is my 4th year, and I started out as a transitional president, and for the first 5 months, I was Lincoln's transitional president, and I oftentimes said, I think I'm going to write a book on what I didn't expect to face when I became transitional president, and I could write a book, but I guess the thing that continues to impress me and excite me is I always just point to our students, and I'm just amazed at the level of passion and commitment they have. Many of them at great cost, coming to Lincoln to study. Many of them sacrificing a great deal. I'm always moved by that, touched by that. And what I have been pleasantly surprised by is the level of engagement that Lincoln Christian University and Lincoln College have been able to have over the last few years. That's been a real delight.
That has kept growing.
It
Each
has.
year it gets a little better.
Yeah, we're just grateful for an ongoing partnership with the other college across town.
Well, I know Dr. Gerlach has that feeling too. The two colleges working together like that enhances both programs.
It really does, and that's been a blessing. So,
And that's one of the reasons Judy and I try to every once in a while bring on a representative of Lincoln Christian University, and that representative is always Dr. Don Green, and we appreciate very much your time. We always try to close, Dr. Green, with a quote. This has somewhat of an analogy to some of our politicians. I'll let you decide which part that would comes from Proverbs. You might know something about that. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. This is where we come into the politics. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Dr.
that's
Don
a
Green,
great line.
we
thank
appreciate
you for sharing
your presence.
That.
Thank you very much, Don.
Thank you for the opportunity to share with you today.